I think it's...
You know that, Rob? I think
I think somebody changed it, didn't they?
they did.
I think somebody changed it.
Is this yours? Okay, I'll put it over here. I'll just, come on, Sheriff. You doing okay?
Joe, you got all your beans up? Too wet?
Judge, next time we get staples,
The corn was still too wet. It's hard to believe it's dry.
The two, like the staple in the agenda?
not like stapling everything, it goes together instead of everything loose.
Okay, you can.
Because I kind of sort through it 3 or 4 times, and if I was to drop it, I'd be in one hell of a mess.
We can do that.
I was surprised that somebody told me that because it was Alan Taylor told me that. And as dry as it's been. I think he said it had to be 16 and it was running 17.
Well, I'd probably do that anyway.
I was like, what did we thumbs up?
Sorry, do you need anything more?
No, I'm good.
You didn't know what it was doing.
I know, I was like, good job.
This isn't a completely new bills list, it's just a part of it.
It's, I think that's
Just
right.
one change on one for the road, the D and the W. It was the only change.
Bumper crop. Your morning for it.
These front 2 pages are still the same.
What time is it? What's your phone say? Oh, you didn't check it?
I was banking on that we were good.
I think we are. Do you agree? Not quite.
Pretty much put it together.
What do you think?
That's 6. That was like 29.
Yeah. Good morning, everyone. We'd like to welcome you to Clark County Fiscal Court meeting. We appreciate you taking of your time to be with us today. We have with us today Reverend Jerry Johns from First Christian Church, and I'm going to ask if everyone would stand. And Pastor, would you come forward and give our invocation?
Let's pray together. God of every living thing, as we gather this morning, we acknowledge our community grief over the passing of Chris Pace. We ask you to be near his family and help us to be near them as well. We acknowledge your presence here this morning now and as always. As the magistrates meet today, we pray you will help them to be at their very best. Help them to hold in their line of sight every resident in our county so that they can see all the people as they go about their work. Grant to them a spirit of kindness, a willingness to be in conversation, and a wisdom that is derived from your wisdom. By your presence, God, help this meeting of the Fiscal Court be of help to our people and our county. Amen.
Amen. Now the Pledge of Allegiance. I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
At this time, we will call our meeting to order, and I'll ask the clerk to call the roll.
Magistrates Elkins,
Present.
Davis.
Present.
Blanton.
Here.
Constantopoulos.
Present.
Thompson.
Here.
Brown.
Present.
Okay, Magistrates, before we get into our meeting, have a couple of changes on the agenda. The presentation from ECCHI Group, they're not going to be here. They've asked to be here on the 23rd. And also, Chief Steve Asbury would like to have that slot to do a small presentation from the Clark County Fire Department, if there's no objection.
If I may, can I add one thing? I laid on everyone's desk a order changing the name of RWT Way to Tyranny Drive. If we might include that on the agenda, I would appreciate it.
Can we make that, put that up with our orders under number 18?
Either make it 18A or 19.
18A?
Yep,
18A, that's good.
thank you.
That's good. And one other thing, we do have a closed session item under 61A. Okay. Public comment, I don't have anyone signed up on our public comment sheet, so I guess we'll move on past that. Consider the approval of the minutes.
Motion approved.
Motion to approve by
Second.
Magistrate Constantopoulos,
Second.
second by Magistrate Thompson. Any discussion?
Judge, if we could change one word, then where it says discussion by HR payroll, if we could make that a of instead of a by.
So we'll make that up.
I'm good with that, Judge.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, with that change, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next, you have your transfer, and we did provide you with an amended transfer.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Magistrate Constantopoulos.
Second.
Second by Magistrate Davis. Any discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next, you have your bills list. And again, we had an amended bills list that we provided you. That
Motion
we
to
actually,
approve.
motion to approve by Magistrate Constantopoulos.
Second.
Second by Magistrate Elkins. Any discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next, you have your treasurer's report for October. Questions, comments? Okay, we'll move on. Next is consider an order approving an agreement with Rumpke.
Motion to approve.
Motion to approve by Magistrate Constantopoulos.
Second.
Second by Magistrate Blanton. Any discussion? All those in favor, aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next, you have an order setting the salary for the Deputy Judge Executive Frankie Faulkner.
Motion to approve, Judge.
Motion to approve by Magistrate Thompson.
Second.
Second by Magistrate Blanton. Discussion?
I had a couple of comments
Yes, sir,
I
Magistrate
wanted
Davis.
to make. Of course, we got an email that I assume all the magistrates got it. I'm pretty sure we all got it as to this appointment by Ms. Faulkner as deputy judge. And I see a copy of the executive order that was signed recently to that effect. And I've dwelled a lot on it since I got that email and as to what my thoughts are about that. And of course, first of all, I mean, I would readily acknowledge, as we all would, I think we'd all agree that that's within any judge executive's power to appoint a deputy judge under the statute. There's no doubt about that. It then falls to the fiscal court to set that, I think the term is reasonable compensation. I think this pay would be, if my math is right, somewhere right around 54 or 55,000 a year gross. I have a couple of issues with it I want to articulate this morning. I think the first issue is, and kind of the issue that's the most, I guess, the biggest elephant in the room, which is that this individual was terminated a little over a year and a half ago. So I have significant issues with bringing any terminated employee back. In fact, our administrative code doesn't even allow it with our hourly employees and people that aren't, offices that aren't creations of statute, like deputy judge is. So wouldn't he be permitted with a department head or an hourly employee unless there's under 3 exceptions, and none of those would be here. But again, the statute governs that, so I don't want to get too far afield into that. But I think that nevertheless, I think it sets a fairly poor example for county government to have an employee that was terminated, whether you agree with the termination or not, to bring that person back, and of all things, deputy judge executive. The other point I'd make is that, I think we have one of the best staff judge executive offices that we've probably had in many years. And, obviously Ms. Townsend is still with us as Director of Operations and HR, doing, I think, a lot of the duties that would traditionally probably be done day to day by the deputy judge. So I think that given the amount of money that, we're already spending for the staff, and I think it's money well spent, I don't really think this is appropriate. And finally, obviously, Henry, like your last term as judge, you didn't have a deputy judge executive, and I think probably had less staff than what you have now. So for those reasons, I'm gonna have to respectfully vote no on this. So.
Other discussion?
Yeah, one thing, I want to just reiterate what Magistrate Davis said there. I mean, the body has addressed this individual not less than a year ago, and I just don't think it's appropriate to readdress it again. And for that reason, I'm going to have to vote no on that.
Floor's still open. Okay.
Judge, I'll just say I support the order. I supported this individual back then, and I still support her now, and I have no issue with it personally.
Anyone else?
I expect, given the history, Judge, I'd have to agree that I just don't really support this order. Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay, I guess it's my turn to respond. As the appointed judge executive to fill the unexpired term, I, within my right, KRS 67711, to appoint reasonable number of office assistants, including a deputy judge executive. As I informed you all in the email, this position was offered to Ms. Townsend, who was the former deputy judge executive, but this court had chose to move her to another position that would be under fiscal court purview. I can remember the circumstances surrounding Ms. Frankie, the person that I've appointed, and I've never seen any resolution I saw allegations, but I never saw a forensic investigation of the computer system that was made public. I never saw any charges filed in court as to why she was dismissed. And it seems that in going back and looking at the fiscal court minutes, that she was dismissed as anyone else would be dismissed in the county judge executive's office in any county in Kentucky. without cause. So with that being said, she has been proven guilty of nothing. She's not had an opportunity to defend herself in a court of law. I believe I worked with Frankie for 6 years. She's been with the county for 7 years. And I fully trust and am very confident in her work. When Janet decided not to accept the position, which I offered it to her first because that was my intention, as I did with our finance officer, I offered him to reinstate him in that position as well, and he accepted. Then I felt I needed to find someone qualified and capable of doing the job of Deputy Judge Executive. So talked with Miss Frankie, and she was willing, even under the extreme circumstances that she must come back and serve. And so that's the reason I made the appointment. And as Magistrate Davis so clearly articulated, any county judge executive in the Commonwealth of Kentucky is entitled to appoint a deputy judge, KRS 67711. So I don't think you can vote yes or no to whether she can serve as the deputy judge executive. I think simply this court, and I will defer to the county attorney, this court would be charged with setting a reasonable salary. I assessed the salary that was budgeted. That's where I got the amount from. Out of the budget, $55,000. And I thought with her experience and dedication to county government in the past, and my recognizing that she's been convicted of nothing, then that's the reason I asked for the salary that this court, by majority vote, has set in the budget. So I still think that you need to set a salary. I think that's up to you all. You know, clearly there's probably a majority, but you simply cannot vote no on my appointment. William, I'm going to ask you if you would like to comment on what I just said. This court is charged with setting the salary. The appointment has been made.
Well, you know, I think the goal for the judge executive is to determine who their appointee will be, and to come to this room under the same statute that you referenced, and come away with a large enough reasonable salary so that when you leave this room, you compensation level. But if you walk out of this room and the compensation level is zero, I think the judge, the package that you're selling to your appointee becomes more difficult. The balance, I think, is easily addressed by the fiscal court considering what it would pay, and I think by the county judge deciding who they'd be willing to pay. So, you know, having not drawn the matter to a vote, I don't know where it shakes out. So.
Okay. Thank you. I appreciate that, and I agree.
Just to comment, I think it was very reasonable that you asked the previous judge executive to serve, in which she chose not to. There's no question about it. This court did set the previous judge executive salary, and that's in the budget. I think this court has numerous times made hires even above what was budgeted for any position in several cases, and went back and amended the budget. So I'm going to support this.
Okay, I guess we will call for the vote.
Judge, I think we need an amount, personally. You've got a motion on the floor for the 21-1539. I guess we can vote that down, but I still think we need an amount for something different.
Someone from the court can
Yeah.
ask for an amendment of the amount before we vote. You know, certainly that's in order, I think. you know, or we can simply vote this down and call for another order with another amount. I think both procedures would be proper and fitting according to Robert's Rules of Parliamentary Procedure, which govern this body.
Only by way of assistance, I'd offer this suggestion.
Yes, sir.
Because there is a motion second on the floor to
Yes.
approve. I think that if either the motion and the second have to be rescinded, it has to be on that or some subordinate motion.
Okay, thank you.
Call for the question, Judge.
Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. And those opposed, no.
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 Do I see 4? So I'm sorry.
You want to do a roll call then?
Who else was on fire?
Magistrate Elkins, Magistrate Davis, Magistrate Graham, and Magistrate Thompson. Okay. And I guess my question now, William, again, would be, do I simply walk away, or should we ask for another motion? Can I ask, do you?
I think that's certainly within your,
Per-
as presiding officer, to ask for another motion.
Okay. Do we have another motion on the floor to serve in place of the one that was denied? Those in opposition would be probably where we would want it to come from.
Well, Judge, I'll offer one, since we have some people who don't want to say anything, which is terribly upsetting to me. They can vote no, but they can't offer any alternative. I would move that we set the salary at $45,000 a year.
I'll second that, Magistrate Blanton.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor by Magistrate Blanton and a second by Magistrate Thompson to approve the salary of the appointed Deputy Judge Executive at $45,000 a year. Discussion.
Well, again, not to just repeat myself, but kind of reiterate and respectfully, I think, Henry, this appointment was just ill-advised. And I think that you had to have known coming into this that this was going to cause a major issue with the court, given that it was a majority vote that made this decision with respect to this employee a little over a year and a half ago. So to that point, I certainly, again, I understand your rights under the statute to appoint a deputy judge. But I think, again, I think it was poor judgment. I think it was ill-advised. And quite frankly, I don't know in my mind, for my part, that there's any reasonable amount above zero that I can support. And it reflect well on the county, because we would not be able to even do this with an hourly employee. And again, I know what you're right under the statute. But again, you know, we've got to think about the example it sets, not just with the public, but our other employees, what they would be allowed to do or not do should they leave or be dismissed or whatever the case. And so for that reason, I'm sorry, but I can't support this motion. And I regret that it's come to this, but I mean, I'm sorry that you put Ms. Faulkner and the court in this position, but you have, and you've done it by executive order. So, and that's your right to do that. But I think it's not the right way to get off on a good foot with your fiscal court. And I'll leave it at that, so.
Well, I'll withdraw that motion, since it's obviously not going to go anywhere.
Will you withdraw the second?
Yes.
Magistrate, I mean, it's obvious, okay. Okay, I'm going to ask once again, and then we're going to move on. Would we have a motion by the opposing members? And just to address what Magistrate Davis said, yes, I knew that there would be 4 votes that did not want Ms. Frankie to be back in county government, but I think those votes have no basis. I think they have no substantiated evidence to back them up other than a personal or political opinion. But that's the reason I brought her in. She would not have come in, and I did not put Miss Frankie in any position. But this is the way county government works. So I'll open up one more time for a motion by the opposition.
You know what, Henry, I respect your opinion, and, you know, what I can say is that, you know, you weren't involved in all the situation that was directly here in the court meeting and then what was involved in closed session. So, you know, to say that it was political or it's personal, there's none of that there. It's just based on the court had made a decision not less than a year ago. You know, I'm agreeable. There's just, for me personally, for this individual, there's not a reasonable salary because of what the court has previously made. But, you know, I respect your opinion of the way you feel. But, you know, for me, there's nothing there for me. I'm sorry.
Okay, we'll move on. Consider an order setting the salary.
So moved.
Motion by Magistrate Davis,
Second.
second by Magistrate Elkins. Any discussion?
Yes, Judge, I'm still waiting for a job description for this technical support position that he has assumed. I voted no last time because we didn't have that. In addition, this is a very sizable increase in pay, which we don't normally do in the middle of a budget year. I mean, it's going to cost, and I know you said in a note that could put some ARPA money into it and this, that, and the other, but again, it's to me, it's and I know we're in a hiring crisis all across the country, and good employees are hard to keep. But because we do not have a job description for this technical support position in our administrative code, I'm going to vote no. If we want to come back and bring us a job description, and I know he's assumed additional duties, but it kind of goes against the grain of other employees. In the middle of a budget year, once we do one, we're going to have to consider others, I'm afraid. So I'm going to vote no.
Other discussion?
Yeah, I'll add to that it is, as it says in your justification for expanded duties, it is IT support for the website, which I think is very important. I think you did a good job at articulating the expanded duties, and for that reason, I will support this order.
One, I can support it too, and I think there's also a precedent. I normally don't like the idea of taking up raises in the middle of the year or outside of budget time, but I think with Mr. Caskey, you know, he's already doing these duties as IT, and then I think moving him back into finance in addition to that is a good idea and well taken. And I know there's been at least one other case with a road supervisor when he took on an additional title, that there was an additional pay for that. And I think it's a very similar situation. And definitely, if there's a way to use ARPA funds legally, to even better, if we can use some of that for this pay. So I think it's well taken. And again, because of the precedent that we had with Mr. Curtis when he took on I think it was the composting and maybe also solid waste coordinator. I think we did a pay for that too, that additional title. So I'm in favor of it. I can vote yes.
May I have the floor, please?
Yes.
I just want to say too, and I want to preface a little bit prior to this appointment. When I was serving as interim judge executive, and I felt that it was very important because, like we've all agreed, under the statute, the sitting judge executive has the appointment authority of a finance officer, and Eric had taken over or had been, prior to him being hired, he was coming in as the finance officer, and then as the website progressed, it started shifting a little bit and taking on those extra responsibilities of the technology director or website director, or however you want it. Because of that, that's why I made the recommendation to move him over to technology, so that would free up the spot for the sitting judge executive to appoint their finance person. And it was brought to my attention by Ms. Townsend at the time, that was serving as deputy judge or HR director, that there was discussions about a pay increase, and it was asked of me to consider that now while I was sitting in that seat. And at that time, I told both of them that I did not feel that it was appropriate for me to do that, because I felt that potentially that he was going to be losing the duties of finance officer. So that's why I did not recommend that. So I think with the extra added duties, we've set a precedence with the court before, that we're going to do an increase. The number, you made the recommendation on the number. So, I mean, you feel that that's what it's worth for those extra duties. And, I think I can support this.
Anyone else? Yes.
Judge, I completely support this. I will agree that we need to get a job description for the IT part. I would like to see that. However, I will support the order, and I appreciate your justification that you put in the packet.
When doing the job description, you may modify the attire worn in the courtroom, not include Duke shirts. But
That's good. Any other discussion?
I would guess the blank for the effective date would be November 1, should the court approve this order?
We left that blank.
I think it'd be effective today, would it not?
Make it effective today.
It's the first day of a pay period.
Yes, that was the discussion. Alicia, it'll be the first day of a pay period, so, since he's salaried. So it would be effective today.
Okay. I just know that if it was the road department, it would have been retroactive to no tell them when. But effective today,
Yes.
the 10th.
Any? Signify by saying aye. Any opposed?
No.
Okay. We have a 6-1, motion does carry. Item 11 would be consider an order setting the rate of pay for executive assistant Nova Horizon.
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Magistrate Davis, second by Magistrate Constantopoulos. Any discussion?
Again, November 10.
Yes, we could do all these today, right?
I mean, notice we started last week.
Hers needs to be November 1st.
Okay.
Magistrate Davis, in your motion, do
That'd
you
be
understand?
fine.
Okay,
Yes, sir.
and Daniel, November 1st.
That'd be fine.
For both, for both blanks, right?
Yes.
I guess all three blanks.
so this one is retroactive back to November?
Yes.
All three
Yes.
blanks will be November 1.
Okay.
I'm going to have a program to keep up, I guess.
Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next would be consider an order approving a salary increase for County Treasurer Alicia Mayab.
Judge,
Yes.
I'd like to offer up a motion, and I'll explain it, and
Okay.
then you can agree or disagree with me. On items 12, 13, and 14, I would like to offer up a motion to table those until budget time, and please let me explain why I'm offering up that motion. There was no information in regards to additional duties that are being taken on for several of these people, and I know when we originally did the pay plan, we did it so it didn't appear that there was picking and choosing. There was some justification behind it. Now I think that all these employees are doing a great job. I know that there's an additional employee that would kind of fall in this same group of individuals. Ms. Townsend, she's been here for 3 years, and there's no increase for her as well. But I would like us to look at it as a body, as a whole, and then also, if we need to, look at each of our departments and look at it as a whole at budget time, and that way we can have open discussions as a body and to see these. But, I think that each one of these employees have done a great job. No qualms here. They're really worth what they get paid, and I'm not saying that I disagree with their increase that you've offered up here, but I just think it would be best for us to have the open discussions once we see everything falling together with the budget, since there's not that additional duty. So that's
I'll second that.
my
So,
motion.
so to restate the motion would be to table items 12, 13, and 14 until budget,
Until our budget discussions to.
2023 budget is formed
Which will be here, what,
in April.
4 or 5 months
March,
here?
April.
Yeah.
Okay. That's the motion on the floor and the second by Magistrate Davis. Any discussion?
Again, with the way the job market is, I'll just leave it at that.
Judge, I got several things, if I may.
Yes, sir.
As far as item 12 is concerned, I believe, unless I've done the math incorrectly, that is absolutely budgeted in this budget if we were to increase that. We can have that discussion if we get to it. 13, I have some questions. I won't ask them unless we get to it. 14, I intended to recuse anyway, so I'm not going to talk about it.
Okay.
These three do a good job. A week ago Friday, I sat through the exit audit with you and Ms. Mayab, and we had a significant number of dings, all of which Alicia has already put things in place to take care of. One of those being the assistant treasurer and the segregation of duties. And I sat there and I watched the auditor praise her for the things that she's put in place. Alicia's done a good job. This gets her up to making what the treasurer was making, the previous treasurer before she came in. I think there's a whole lot of reason that we should consider all three of these, and I would not support tabling them.
Other comments?
Well, my thoughts, the reason I seconded Daniel's motion is to echo him. I value all these employees. I've not gotten to know Ms. Sperling very well, but Alicia certainly is doing a fantastic job by all accounts and has since she started. And I think she's an excellent treasurer. My only thought is, and she certainly, I think if all continues to go well, and I think it probably will, I have no reason to think that it won't, will be deserving of that raise. But I think we've got to be careful about, I hate to say picking and choosing, but that's really what the best term that comes to mind, because I know we've got other department heads and employees, including, again, some of our hourly employees that, have gotten, maybe the anniversary bump of 1% or whatever it is, but are still, I'm sure, some of their eyes maybe not making what they think they should be making. So, and we haven't heard from them yet. And again, as Daniel said, I like taking these up at budget time because we get kind of a global view of all of those. So somebody's not seeing one employee or one department head getting a raise in the middle of the year or middle of the fiscal year, and then they got to wait till 6 months or 8 months to see any more money in their pocket. So that's not a statement on my part on any of these three employees by any means. And so I'm going to have to reluctantly, support the motion to table. I just think it's probably not the appropriate time right now to be doing it.
Seemed like I just said that, and we voted on opposite items on item number 10. So I'm really getting confused.
Well, let me explain that for you.
I don't need no explanation. That's enough.
Let's not get into
I just,
tit for
I
tat.
think
I don't need an
that-
explanation. Thank you.
Well, the difference is.
Thank you for the offer.
Okay, excuse me.
Thank you for the offer.
Okay, wait just a second. Let me offer, you've had an opportunity to
Okay.
offer comment. Let me offer to the rest of the body, and then we'll come back and let you, because you'll have two opportunities for comment during a meeting, so.
May I-
Anyone else?
If I may,
Yes, sir. Thank you.
I thought it might be a good time to jump in. I was actually on the committee to hire one of the three that we're talking about, and if we go back and look, you can see that I lobbied to pay Ms. Mayab more than we're paying her now at the time we hired her, because I think she was worth more. I think she's worth more now. I do, however, have concerns about doing it in the middle, about an increase in the middle of the budget year. I can see no reason why I won't support a salary increase as we're doing the next budget. I think she's deserving of it. To Mr. Thompson's point, I think she has implemented procedures here that are necessary, and they're good for county government. They're good for transparency. They're good for audits. They make us look better, and I think she's worth every penny that we're talking about. It's the procedure that concerns me, the way of doing it, because to Magistrate Davis's point, there are no doubt many, many other county employees that are worthy of more money right now. But we just have to be careful with that. And so for that, I'm going to support the motion to table reluctantly. I would love to give these increases now, and hopefully we can give them at the next budget cycle. But thank you for the time.
May I have the floor?
Yes.
I just want to reiterate, I think that was very well articulated, Magistrate Elkins. It's, I agree. I think that, in this case, Alicia, the raise to get back to, what the previous treasurer was, and if I'm not mistaken, when the discussions come up, that Magistrate Blanton initially offered or recommended that amount. I can't remember. That's been over a year ago. But she is very well deserving. She's been a pleasure to work with. But again, I just think it sets a precedent, since there's no additional duties being added, that it potentially can open Pandora's box. And I would soon do it at budget time, and then we look at the body as a whole. And then that way we can just address everything once. It's handled one time, and then we go on conducting the county's business. So I have nothing further on that. Thank you, Judge.
Okay.
Let me ask you a question, Magistrate Constantopoulos. Would you consider tabling 13 and 14 and not 12, since it is in the budget and it is budgeted? Is that a consideration you'd be willing to make?
And if I can, she has assumed additional responsibilities, because I've talked to Perry on a number of occasions, and she has been doing additional work with no additional pay now for, I forget how many months.
I'm talking about Alicia.
No, I'm talking about 14.
I'm not gonna speak to 14.
Yeah, he
Oh, I know
You're
you, I know
welcome,
you
but
want.
I'm not.
Well, I can talk.
You're just asking just to 12.
I'm asking Magistrate Constantopoulos if he'd be willing to leave 12, and let's do that consideration, and only table 13 and 14. And the only reason I say that's because the suggested pay increase, and I would point out, and please correct me if I'm wrong, the treasurer approached Judge Branham and asked for this. Okay? I would point that out. This isn't just Judge Branham throwing it out there because he wanted to. Am I correct?
Yeah, and let me speak to that real quick, if I may, and tell you all how these come to be on the agenda. As the Chief Operating and Administrative Officer, I came in, there were a lot of things in process before I came in, so I simply sat down the first day and had a conversation with the employees, and one thing I did was just opened up and said, if we need to have a conversation about something that's going on, I'm probably not aware of it, and I need to be made aware of it. So they came to me, the employees did, at different times, and we met one-on-one, and we had these conversations. And, with regard to the others, the Deputy Judge, Executive Finance Officer, and the Executive Assistant, those were solely my decisions. I had intended to, as I said, I wanted to keep the Deputy Judge that was in place. I wanted to keep the Finance Officer that was in place. The Administrative Assistant that was leaving, she had already scheduled that. She was taking a much better job, and I knew she was not going to stay, so I knew that. But these other three, as we had conversations, and probably we should have put a narrative in Alicia's and Amanda's, because they are going to be assuming additional duties as well with regard to the ARPA funds. There'll be, I know in the Treasurer's office, we've had conversations about some of the paperwork and monitoring and reporting that she and the Assistant Treasurer, Amanda, are going to have to do, and it's going to be a tremendous load. In my opinion, and the reason I wanted to bring those to this table, be for your all's, decision and approval. Once I heard their stories, and just like when I heard Eric's story about what's going to be involved, I thought, that's a tremendous amount, and I'm not sure that these are things that's in their job description, although most times it's other duties as assigned. In the treasurer's case and in the assistant treasurer's case, in the audit exit conference the other day, we did get gigged on segregation of duties on more than one area. And this is something that I think that was set up to reduce that in our next audit. When these two county employees will be, doing the work and everything. So that's the reason I brought them to you all, because of the conversations, the added duties with administering the ARPA grant. Oh, yes, sir.
No, go, I just
Oh.
letting you know when you're finished.
I will.
I'm not done yet either.
And then with regard to number 14, in conversations with her, and I've tried to have conversations with all supervisors and those in policy-making positions throughout the county government. And I discovered that she was still considered an interim, that the fiscal court had never changed her status, and that she had understood that status change would be an increase in salary as well. So we went back and we put some work into these numbers, and I'll just, for example, with the treasurer, we went back and researched where the county had hired a treasurer at one time, and I think Greg alluded to that, at $70,000 a year with no experience. And, obviously, the county treasurer that we have now has tremendous experience, education, and skills. That's one of the reasons I felt confident in bringing that to you all, in addition to the added responsibilities she will have with the ARPA grant. There again, with the Assistant Treasurer, Director of Finance, I know the burden of her responsibilities of doing those jobs, because not only is she responsible for monitoring, collecting, and reporting business types of revenue that the county receives, but in the Assistant Treasurer position, she assumes other duties and responsibilities that will mirror the county treasurer. So that's one of the reasons that I brought Amanda, and we figured a formula. We figured the county treasurer's salary that we were proposing, and then we looked at what the assistant treasurer, director of finance was making. It was 70% of the county treasurer's salary, so we used that as a logical formula going forward. If we could pay our county treasurer the $70,000, then we would pay our assistant treasurer, director of finance 70% of that. That's where we arrived at that number. With regard to number 14, we went back to the federal budget for CSEP, and having a history with county finance, I knew, and Perry knows, that the federal budget carries a full-time employee amount. They will budget each county in the CSEP area so many full-time employees, and with Clark County we have 1.5. So we went back and looked at the federal budget and knew that there was the one, and we took that part out of it. We took that percentage of what the federal government had budgeted us, and that's how we arrived at the amount for Perry. And also on this salary with the CSEP director manager, it's 90% reimbursable. So the immediate expense with regard to the CSEP and the other two with the ARPA grant would not be any added expense to county government because of those fundings that are in place right now, both of them federal funding. At some point in time, a fiscal court is going to have to address how we move forward, what positions are worth within county government in Clark County. But fiscal court's going to have to do that anyway. So I just wanted to add that as a little bit of rationale. And Greg, you were next, and then Travis.
If I may, it's a good explanation, and I appreciate that.
Probably should have given it sooner.
Well, I was going to ask maybe that Magistrate Constantopoulos will consider amending his motion to table this to the next meeting and give you time to include justification, particularly added duties to justify these increases. Maybe he won't entertain it. I don't know. It's just question
We
I
can
was
ask him,
wondering. We can.
So you're asking me to amend my motion to table this until next meeting? Henry, to give us more explanation on the added duties for each of these increases. Is that, did I understand you correctly?
That would be correct, yes.
I will accept that.
Okay, and I think, you have the second? No. Who had the second
I had
on
the
the
second.
table? Would you accept that? Okay. So the motion would be, Heather, sorry, to table these items
12,
12, 13,
13,
and 14 until our next fiscal court meeting.
To provide time for Henry to give us a written
A
detail.
written.
A written detail.
A
I
written
mean,
narrative. And we,
justification, you know, in certain situations when there's justification like this, like there was in Eric, which you detailed, I mean, I can feel better considering that because it doesn't look like we're just picking and choosing on the raises.
listen, that's perfectly reasonable. The only reason Eric and I were able to do a written narrative is, you know, quite frankly, that's the type of people we're all. We're very anal, and we sat down and wrote one up, and we can do the same for the others as well. Okay, so that's the motion and the second.
I can support that if it pleases the rest of the court, but I would just ask that over the next, keep in mind, we're in a unique situation, a unique time right now. Doing raises once a year ain't gonna cut it right now. We're not gonna have employees. So we've got to figure out a way to get around it, and we've got this ARPA money to deal with, and I know the judge is working on forming a committee on how to use that, and I don't want to put the cart before the horse, but just keep that in mind. I usually set my employees' salary, or their rate of pay at the beginning of the season for me, which is in the spring. This year, I've given them 3 raises, because I wouldn't have anybody working for me if I didn't. So just keep that in mind while you're thinking about this.
Yes.
Well, thank you. Just a couple of things. I appreciate Magistrate Constantopoulos' willingness to move that table till the next meeting. I think it's well taken, a good idea. I agree with, if there are added duties, particularly with ARPA, and we know that's looming, that's going to be millions of dollars to distribute. It's going to be a lot of accounting and administrative work, and I definitely appreciate that. And, you know, for the same reason that I supported the finance officer is because you had provided, I thought, a very good detailed description of the reasoning for that. And so I think it's an excellent idea. And again, that was my hesitation with these 3, is that we really didn't see on paper yet the expanded duties, like with the ARPA funding, the administrative and accounting that's going to go into that. And that's certainly an excellent point, and I look forward to seeing that. And I think that's a good resolution of it for now.
Yes.
One last thing, and Magistrate Thompson's correct. I mean, this is a difficult time for all businesses. I've seen it in my own business, and
Doesn't matter what you do.
it doesn't. I mean, it's uniform across the board, and that's why I'm saying that that was the initial reason for this is because I think we're going to end up being in a situation. I know there's a presentation that's going to come up from the detention center that I just saw here, that it's going to affect us all, and that's going to affect tremendously our budget. So that's, was my concern, because I know this is coming down the pipe, so I appreciate you mentioning that.
Okay, any other discussion? Okay, we'll call for the question. Does everyone understand the motion in the second is to table these 3 items until the next fiscal court meeting? Okay. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposed? Looks like unanimous. Motion carries. We will move those to the next agenda. Then we'll go down to item 15, consider an order approving the reappointment of Teddy Markham to the East Clark County Water District Board of
So
Commissioners.
moved.
Second.
Motion by Magistrate Davis, second by Magistrate Elkins. Discussion?
Do you have dates for the blanks, Judge?
Oh.
Yeah, it's the end of the year.
Thank you, Magistrate
Is it-
Blanton. Is it on
I
the?
think that's what it says in the letter, if I remember correctly.
No, I think that was the other letter about
Oh, you're
Leanne Coleman.
correct. You're
The East
correct.
Clark County letter didn't have any dates.
Yep, you are correct.
So it's in the beginning?
I'm not sure when it is.
If you could just get us an order for the next packet with those dates filled in. The East Clark County didn't have a date.
Yeah, it was the extension office, appointment
It
that
was.
expires. You're correct, Magister Blanton.
So we will, are we going on the premise that it's the first of the year? That it's
If you'll just provide us a copy with the filled-in blanks for the next meeting, I'm good with that,
okay.
because I know
Do we
you
not
have,
need to, do we not need to fill in the blanks before we vote on it, or no?
it's the term, and it's the term's what it is, but, I mean, I'm good either way.
Well, if it's not critical, we could move it to the next meeting and fill the blanks in.
That's
If
fine,
it's
too.
not time
Whatever
sensitive.
y'all feel.
That's
I
fine
just-
with me. I mean, if there's no flexibility, they are what they are.
In that particular appointment, there is a 90-day period when it must be done. Just in case you're inside that 90-day period, you may want to go ahead and vote today as opposed to finding out next meeting time if you're outside the period.
Let's just vote on it today.
Yep, I'm good with that.
So we have a motion and a second, I think, and no amendments. Are we good? All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, moving right along.
Now, this one has the dates.
Okay, consider an order approving the reappointment of Leanna Comer.
Motion approved.
Motion by Magistrate Constantopoulos,
Second?
second by Magistrate Elkins. Any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 17, consider an order approving the appointment of Pam Price Reffitt to the Clark County Extension District.
Motion approved.
Motion by Magistrate Constantopoulos.
Second? Go ahead.
Can we give that to Joe?
Mhm.
Second by Magistrate Graham. Any discussion?
So this is for Martha Gaither's term?
Yes. Long-serving member of
She's been
the...
there for quite a
Yes,
while.
indeed.
And then the dates are December 31st, effective today.
Right. Any other discussion? All in favor, aye? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Next would be an order awarding and distributing for funding local programs relating to the Fiscal Court Community Foundation. Fund.
Motion approved.
Motion by Magistrate Constantopoulos,
Second.
second by Magistrate Thompson. Any discussion?
I just want to say I appreciate the committee that worked on this. I thought y'all did a very good job. I think that was Magistrate Davis, Magistrate Thompson, and Magistrate
Elkins.
Elkins. Y'all did a good job, good recommendation. Appreciate y'all's hard work.
Thanks to Eric for keeping track of it all on his computer. He was helping in our meeting.
Okay, any other discussion? All those in favor, aye? Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Item 18A would be an order of the Clark County Fiscal Court changing the name of RWT Way to Tierney Drive, and this was upon the petition of the abutting landowners.
And the reason I asked for this was, it does clear up the confusion out there, and the name just road has one name, so it makes it easier to find, using Siri or Google Maps or anything else. So,
Motion to approve.
Motion by Magistrate Thompson.
Second.
Second by Magistrate Blanton. Any discussion?
Just note that this was requested by the abutting property owners. And we probably need to send something to GIS as well.
Yes, very well noted. All those in favor, aye?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next, we do have Jailer Doyle here with us, and we've listed on the agenda presentation. And he has some of his staff with him, and of course, we have our jail committee members here. And Jailer Doyle, I'm going to give the floor to you. There you go.
I appreciate that, Judge. Thank you for allowing us to have the time here in front of the fiscal court to address a couple of things that I want to do. I wanted to try and bring a little bit of fresh air in this morning. I've been blessed, and before I start, I want to share a couple of things with you. There's some people that are involved in our jail process or behind the scenes that I think should be recognized. And I want to personally thank them for their job they do. Miss Susie Craycraft, she's my administrative assistant here. She's one that kind of keeps tabs on the financial end of it, up in the front end of it for us. You know, I'm also blessed to have Ernie Salmons on as basically our financial assistant there. Between him and Susie, they're the ones that make sure the numbers fall where the numbers fall. So that's a good thing. My money maker, I like to call him, he's our Class D coordinator. That's Lieutenant Harold Little. He's with us here this morning. I'd just like to recognize these people because these are the people that help us bring money into this facility. Harold has been here even before I was jailer. Harold has quite an extensive work background prior to coming to Clark County. So I think Clark County is blessed to have him on their staff because he don't miss a day, he don't miss a beat, and he stays on top of it. Second thing I want to tell you is I'm going to take about 10 minutes of your time, and I just wanted to tell you too, I'm not very good at time management, so I wanted to share that with you. I missed a couple of people, and I apologize for this. Something other that we established here a couple of years ago that has been a blessing to us. It's not required. It's been a blessing. It's something we all sat down at the table and volunteered to do. I would like to also thank my employees there. I want to thank Master Greg Elkins, and I want to thank Master Travis Thompson. They're on our jail committee, have done a wonderful job. The only other person I think I missed is Miss Alicia in her department as treasurer of the county. She's been a breath of fresh air and wonderful to work with. I think that everybody on my team will agree with that. Everybody's communicating, everybody's working well. We have a few new things in the making that I believe is going to become profitable for Clark County. I basically I'm going to let Mr. Salmons kind of explain this to you in detail, but I'll let him walk you through this. I know you have your overhead set up, and I'll turn this over to you.
Thank you. Thank you again for the opportunity to address the court about a challenge that obviously is facing the entire county, and it's one that's hitting us squarely between the eyes. So if we could, I've given you all a copy of this so you can make notes, but it's also on the screen. Our current challenge is the surrounding counties and jails are paying significantly more than Clark County to start a deputy jailer. That's Woodford, Scott, Fayette, Bourbon, Madison, Montgomery, and Rowan. Woodford alone in the past 4 weeks has hired 6 of our deputy jailers away, and they're paying 17 or more an hour for those deputies. Now, you know, we lose not just the deputy, we lose the training that the money we've sunk into training them, we lose years of experience, and it's hard to replace that. Currently, we don't have any qualified applicants at $12 an hour. You go to McDonald's and it says starting at $12 an hour. For people that want to be in this career, they obviously can just go across the county line. So what we're faced with is, well, for instance, we've had 6 applicants just recently that have applied. They look pretty good. We did a background check, and they were convicted felons. And of course, convicted felons can't work at the detention center. So that's the challenge we have. And if go to the next slide, the risk associated with doing nothing and not being competitive. Right now, we have 100 state inmates. They pay $31.34 a day. So that's $3,134 a day that we're cutting. And that's because of Lieutenant Harold Newsom. I'm sorry. I'll pay for that when I get back to the jail. In big time. But that's because of him. Because as soon as the Department of Corrections opened up, we could start transferring, he went out and found everybody he could. In fact, one funny thing, he was so mad, one day he had 10 inmates coming to Clark County. He put gas in the van and he was headed out. And they messed up and they sent him to Clay County instead. He was hard to be around for a couple of days after that. But so there's the state inmate revenue that we're building back, but we also, Seth Newsom has been working with the U.S. Marshal Service, Seth and Frank both, and we're looking at onboarding them in December, possibly January, December the earliest. That's over $50 a day revenue. And the kicker there is, we're responsible for all the medical, we the taxpayers, the fiscal court, are responsible for all of the medical expenses of state and county inmates. The feds pick up all of the medical expenses, dental, you name it, for their own inmates. So that's a huge potential liability we're not faced with. Frank, were you going to say something?
I was going to pitch in one other thing. Good thing with the, something other, and our jail committee, we've kept them kind of updated on some of this. The good thing is, if we take a county or a state inmate and we go to the hospital, they're ours. We own them. We're stuck with them. We've been in the hospital from 3 hours to 3 weeks with these people. All of it pretty much on an overtime basis. With the federal, after they're there a certain amount of hours, I'm talking within 24 hours, the feds have a team that does nothing but sits with people in these hospitals. So that relieves our people, the people we don't have right now, that relieves them, and it also takes that burden of that overtime off of us too.
Well, we should also mention that the feds will reimburse us for any time we do spend there.
Yeah.
They also reimburse our salaries and mileage for any time we spend taking inmates to the federal courthouse and bringing them back. So, you know, you can obviously see the federal inmate U.S. Marshals program is, that's what's going to help this county for decades to come, regardless of who the jailer is. We also have a legal exposure, a liability exposure. If something were to happen at the detention center and a staff member or an inmate is injured, if we were understaffed, it was determined we're understaffed, I'm sure there's an attorney that's going to come after the taxpayers of Clark County. We want to about 70 to 75 state inmates to run the programs. That's the cleanup programs, the highway. As soon as we're released, we're going to do that. Magistrates Elkins and Thompson have said, we want you all taking care of this courthouse, scraping the snow, cutting the grass. We're definitely going to get that going. But we also lose the, so that's free service to the county we won't be getting. The laundry, the cleaning and maintenance of the facility, we lose that labor as well. So on the next slide, economic impact of losing state and federal inmates. Now this is where the numbers come in, and the jail committee, Magistrates Elkins and Thompson, have seen the spreadsheets. But currently for this fiscal year, it's budgeted that the county will put in a $1,334,000. We'll transfer that to the county. That big number is because of COVID. It is because of loss of revenue. To give you an idea, the first 4 years of Jailer Doyle's administration, the county taxpayers put in $818,000. We'd like to get that number back below $1 million. Our responsibility to the county is to manage this money. With the raises, we're looking at possibly needing another $125,000 in this fiscal year, bringing the county's contribution up to $1,459,000. That's assuming 40 federal inmates from January through June. Looking at a worst case scenario, what if we lost everybody January 1st? And I'm not saying this is going to happen, but it puts in perspective how important revenue is. If we said we're not going to get any state or federal inmate revenue from January 2020 through the rest of the fiscal year, that would cost the taxpayers another $1,044,000, bringing the total from $1,334,000 to $2,378,000. The economic impact of retaining the state and picking up the federal inmates for looking at 2023 and assuming we've increased costs for things such as food. We called Kelwell. They said expect about an 8% increase. We've tried to build up what our expenses will be with inflation. We're looking at bringing the projected taxpayer contribution into in 2023 less than $1 million. And if you notice, we had a blend of state and federal inmates of 75 state, 75 federal. So the state revenue is $857,000 in that scenario, and the federal projected revenue is $1,505,000. So again, revenue is how we're going to protect us, the taxpayers, in the future. As I stated earlier, our goal is to bring the cost to the taxpayers down. We obviously would rather buy playground equipment, we'd rather build swimming pools, but this is a necessary evil. We have people committing crime, and we're charged with the care, custody, and control. So what do we do to keep that cost down? Federal inmates, as I discussed earlier, they're going to pay $50 or more a day. The medical expenses are on the federal government, so it would be it would be wrong for us not to pursue that. Currently, Kentucky pays $31.34 a day. We haven't had a per diem increase in 16 years. That's still being discussed in Frankfurt. And so the risk of not being able to staff our detention center is losing revenue and then burdening the taxpayers for the entire balance. So retaining the state, building the federal, regardless of who the jailer is 10 years from now, it's going to be better for the county. But I wanted to kind of give you that update and answer, we all came to answer any questions you all might have.
I got a question.
Yes, sir.
The obvious question is, and you don't need court approval, what are you going to raise the starting salary to? You're going to have to do it.
It's going to go to 17.
Okay.
We kicked around, well, what if we 14 or, lesser, but we're already behind with Woodford County. And by the time we get caught up, I'm afraid, I talked to a cohort in Bourbon County, ran into him at calls, and he goes, Ernie, we're already giving raises just to keep people.
Okay.
And, Robert, just to add to that, just so the rest of the court's familiar with it, we've had this conversation, believe me, more than once.
Well, I'm sure you have.
Again, that's why I want to thank Master Elkins and Thompson being on the jail committee. And we've sat here and looked at numbers, played with numbers, done everything that we possibly can do to make it understandable. We could take baby steps at it, but then we're going to constantly be fighting that battle. Just deal with it, let's address it, move forward, versus saying, well, why can't we do a couple here or a couple there? It's okay, but do you want to, there's, again, all these risks come back into play. The revenue, having the personnel there to generate that revenue, taking the chance on losing those people. And again, I told you I wasn't very good with time management, and I thank you for your time. Ernie,
Okay.
if you got anything else?
Any other questions?
Question.
Yes, sir.
So with respect to federal inmates, let's talk about that for a minute.
Okay.
Are there any federal inspections, certifications of a detention center that are required? And if so, realistically, how ready is this jail to pass one?
There absolutely are. I'll let Frank.
They are ready. They have come in and done the inspections, and again, that's a good point to bring up, and I apologize. I know the jail committee's familiar with it, and sometimes that's my fault. I get too many irons in the fire, and I fail to communicate it. The federal people have come in and done the jail inspection. We're good. They've even gotten us as far along right now, set up in to do the billing in the computer system. Captain Newsom will be in charge of that, him and Miss Susie, and Ernie, so that we make sure that everything's in order. But it's a little slow process with the feds, end of it, getting it going, but it's going. And I mean, it's not a question of if, it's a matter of when.
Is Fayette getting most of them right now? Fayette?
No, they're, Fayette, to be honest with you, has put in, and I just talked to one of their majors here not long ago. They have had to put a lot of their state inmates out. They're keeping a certain amount of feds in Fayette County just because of the federal courthouse located there. They got rid of, and I'm talking to the tune of about 200 state inmates because they don't have the deputies. They're probably 100 plus short on employees. They're seeing the same thing everybody else is
Well, I
seeing.
figured the federal court there had been giving them somewhat of an advantage to.
They did, but they're running into the same thing we're running into, having enough employees to staff it. And like I say, they've gotten rid of probably 200 plus of their state inmates. And thanks to Lieutenant Little here, he was able to put his hands on several of those. So it's been good. It's been good.
Well, and you know, Captain Newsom driving this U.S. Marshals program is, and kudos to you all. We're sitting in a meeting surrounded by U.S. Marshals, and one of them says, well, you're going to need a SAMS.gov number. And I'm texting Alicia, do we have a SAMS.gov number? And there wasn't a yes or a no, it was just the number. And they said, well, that's perfect, because it took Bourbon County 8 months to get their number. So you all already being prepared for, you've laid the groundwork for our success. And Alicia, thank you so much. But otherwise, it would have been a much longer wait without those federal registrations.
A few things that I would add to this, and Greg, feel free to step in, because you and I are privy to it, but just for the benefit of the rest of the fiscal court. First of all, in matter of transparency, the reason they're here today and the reason they're doing this is because myself and Magistrate Elkins suggested it, to be transparent with the fiscal court. And I think what they're trying to say here is, look, we might be looking for another $125,000 to pull this off, to finish out this fiscal year, but next year you're going to reap the benefits of it. So I think that
hopefully for decades to come.
While they don't need a vote on this, I think they're looking for a blessing from the fiscal court. So if anybody's got an issue with it, please speak up and let's hash it out and see where we go, because they don't want to pull this trigger until they have at least a head nod from the fiscal court. Is that accurate?
This is the fiscal court. All money that comes in belongs to the county and is managed by this court, so we need to keep you all informed of what we're up to.
I don't want to speak for Mr. Elkins, but I support everything that's in the presentation and what they're trying to do here, and I think he does as well, but I'll let him speak to that when I get done. The other thing I would say is, you're having a hard time just filling vacancies right now.
Yes, sir.
You're having a hard time keeping your number to where it needs to be.
Yes, sir.
And as somebody who frequents the jail at night quite a bit, you're not just losing a body and somebody that can breathe, you're losing experience. You're losing somebody that you've trained, that you've taught how to do their job over there at that jail. And when a law enforcement agency rolls in with somebody that's in a mental health crisis, we don't just need the guy that walked in off the street and put in for the $12 an hour job to keep from hurting this individual or to properly handle this individual. So we're losing experience, and that's important. Woodford County's not coming in here and hiring the guy we just drug off the street. They're hiring the guy's workforce for 2 or 3 years. And that's understandable on their part, but we've got to do what we can do to try to retain that individual. And my last comment is, this federal program is going to require some additional employees on top of what we have, because we have to transport them. We have to deal with them. It's going to require a vehicle or two to be purchased. So again, in the effort to be transparent, that needs to be said that's coming down the pike. So not only does he need to be able to fill the spots that he currently has, he's got to be able to fill a few more spots in order to bring in this additional money in this federal program. So just wanted to add those points.
That's baked into these numbers.
Yeah, these numbers are legit. Ernie's been through them. He's been through them with Greg and I. We've seen a gajillion spreadsheets, it's predictable as it can be. So, but I just want to make it clear, in an effort for transparency, that they may need an additional $124,857 from what we previously committed to finish out this fiscal year to accomplish this. But as you see in his numbers in the presentation, we'll reap the benefits of that in the next year and beyond.
Well, if there are no other questions, again, I appreciate your time, your consideration, and again, if you think of a question later, you all have my number, just give me a ring.
Thank you, Ernie.
Ernie
Appreciate
cut me
it.
off.
Okay, sorry, you cut the I'm sorry, Mr. Magistrate. You have a question, sir?
I don't have any questions. I just want to add to what Magistrate Thompson just said. The employees that we're losing there at the detention center aren't people that we hired yesterday or last week. They are people that have been there for years, trained employees that are, and some of that training is necessary to get these federal inmates. And we have ran these spreadsheets out all the way to 2023 budget to see what it looks like with 75 federal inmates and 75 state inmates. We believe that's doable. The key to it is 75 federal inmates. That is the key to getting this detention center needs under $1 million. But the numbers prove out that if we can get there, it really will be under $1 million needed by the taxpayers in 2023. So, again, I know some of the increases in pay that we're talking about are significant, but I think it's necessary that we get trained up to manage and handle federal inmates in our detention center. Otherwise, we're going to continue needing to contribute $1.5 million, $1.6 million every year to the detention center to manage it. It's not, and even this morning, we looked at expenses this morning. The detention center's expenses are pretty much in line with the budget. It's a revenue issue. It was last year, it was the year before, and the year before. It's a revenue issue. It's not necessarily an expense issue. Their expenses, I think, on the treasurer's report for October were about 36% of their budgeted expenses. That's understandable because all their workers' comp's paid out. There are a lot of July expenses that are paid for 100% of the year. So that's why it's a little high now. It should be at 33%, they're at 36%. If you back out those expenses that are paid one time, they're right at 33%, dead on where they should be. So again, it's a federal inmate issue. Well, not an issue. We need those federal inmates, and we need to get trained up for it, staffed up for it, and make it happen in December. January if it has to be, but December if it can be. So.
One of the things I'd like to share with the court is, and I've shared this with Magistrate Devlins Thompson, we're not trying to, what I'm trying to do, I'm trying to make this job easier for the next jailer that comes in. I'm not gonna be here 27 years retired, but the next jailer that comes in, I'm trying to build that foundation for them. I want to build this foundation for Clark County. I want whoever's sitting on the fiscal court at that time, I want to try and make your job easier. That's our goal, is what we're trying to accomplish. I thank you for your time. I thank you for your comments. And I thank everybody for their help.
Thank you all.
That concludes all of it.
Thank you. Thank you, Jailer Doyle.
Thank you.
Okay, Chief Asbury has a presentation for us, and you have the floor.
Just check and make sure it wasn't good afternoon.
Quickly getting there.
I'll try to keep, like Jailer Doyle said, I know my presentation is probably an hour, but I will condense it very quickly. The reason I come to you, I was actually scheduled to come at a previous court meeting. I've been here about a year now, and I wanted to give you an update on where we've been and where we're going. Currently, when I took over as the fire chief for the Clark County Fire Department, let me back up real quick. Let me give you a quick update on the flooding. Sorry, we've got so much information, I just want to make sure we get it in. So we're about a month into the flooding, recent flooding incident here in Clark County. That information has been compiled and sent to the state. It's been about 30 days now, as of last week when I spoke to the area manager. That has not went to the federal government as of yet. That information hasn't moved on. So that's where we're at in that process. As far as the public is concerned, we're still doing damage assessments on a daily basis. It's not necessary that we do a damage assessment now. They know that we had damage in our county, but we ask those homeowners and business owners to merely take pictures and record their damage and make sure that they keep any and all receipts that they repair their homes or businesses with. In case we do get financial assistance, those will be necessary. So any questions about the emergency management portion of my job right now? Sorry, a lot to keep up with. So back to the fire department. So when I took over as the fire chief, our current staffing was authorized at 23, and we currently, at that time, we had 14 employees. Now we're staffed at 26 employees, and we're authorized 26 employees. So we are fully staffed at this time. And I'd like to thank the court for, they had a big part in that, and we're currently hoping that we keep our employees. I know that, you know, like the jailer just said, a lot of counties are starting to draw away. I'll address that later in the salary, but currently we are fully staffed, and I'm proud of that fact. So moving to the equipment section, so what I'm trying to, Magistrate Blanton had asked if we get ourselves on a schedule as well as other court members. And I've been working with our fire committee to do that. So I'd like to run down through our equipment that we currently have and show you where we're at and where we need to move forward to. So this is our $5,000 aerial ladder truck that we purchased from the city of Jenkins.
It is an 87 model. It's an older truck, but there is a reason why we purchased this truck. One, we need an aerial device at the county fire department. We've already used this truck on 2 events. They were large barn fires. It was very instrumental in helping us put those out. It is equipped with a ladder, and it has a 2.5-inch pre-pipe section on that truck that we used for those incidents. This truck was also purchased for the reason of trying to get a grant to replace this truck. So FEMA currently has the Assistance to Firefighters Grant, and we can write a grant that's specific because this is an open cab truck. Sorry, it's a little bright in here and you can't see it, but they want to replace all open cab vehicles because there are some safety concerns with these trucks. We currently do not ride anybody in those 2 sections. We just don't do it because of the safety factor, but it may help us actually get a truck to replace this one. These trucks typically run somewhere between $750,000 upwards to $1.5 million. So obviously I don't believe the county could take on that expense, so this is our way of trying to get something to replace it. So you see the odometer reading is at 98,000. There's the links. Also, if you notice down there, it says no house assignment. That's also currently because we have no place to put the truck. So we are now, we have more trucks than we have space for. It's just still a necessary piece of equipment. That's why we purchased it, but it doesn't have a housing assignment right now because we don't have anywhere to put it. Next slide, please. Engine 4, we're going in oldest to newest as well. So this is our current reserve engine that's actually in service today because one of our frontline engines is down. So it's a 2005. You can see right now it's house assignment is at Station 1, and that's where it's permanently out. It is also in place of Engine 2 right now because it is out to be repaired. Go to the next slide, please. So this is current Engine 2. It's a 2012 model. It's a Pierce. We've had a number of issues. This is the next truck scheduled to be cycled out. Currently, it's a worldwide getting the turbo fixed. We've also had a few transmission issues, and more importantly, it's also a pump issue as well. So the pump on it is deteriorating, and it still passes pump testing right now, but that's why it's scheduled to go out next. You can see it's almost a 10-year-old truck. Has 84,000 miles. Also, it's okay. Also about this truck, it's currently housed at Station 2, and Station 2 is at City Station 2. It's closed right now because it received flooding damage. The reason I put this house assignment on there is because this truck can only be replaced with a certain size truck. We're limited to where we can put a truck into service because of the size of Station 2, which really inhibits what we can replace it with. And that will eventually lead me to another point in the presentation I will go over, but we need to look at our fire stations as well. But so we're trying to purchase a new truck to replace this one. We have a technical committee right now putting the specifications together. We'd like to have it ordered before the end of the year, which actually puts it in a new budget. So I'm not asking for any money right now. Our budget's set. We're going with it, and our men know that. But I need to put it on your radar now because we need to budget for this truck in the upcoming year. Next slide, please.
Chief, is that the truck you referred to as a lemon?
No. This is,
okay. All right.
I'd rather not make that comment publicly, but this is the truck Engine 1 is.
It is what it is. I'm just curious which one it was.
Yes, sir. This is Engine 1. This is our next oldest truck, this is a frontline truck as well. Engine 2 is a frontline truck. Engine 1 and Engine 3 are all frontline trucks. This is the lemon. So this is a Suffin. It was manufactured by Suffin. And I'm not saying it's because it's a Suffin truck. It's because of the motor. We have rebuilt this motor twice in this truck, and it's just a 2016 model. It only has 62,000 miles on it, and this is housed at Station 1. This is our rescue truck. This is what we carry most of our rescue equipment on. Each truck has a different function. We have 3 fire engines. The aerial truck is a Quint, which does 5 functions. Most of our fire trucks do 4 functions. The Quint, the ladder truck, does 5. The aerial ladder being the 5th element. You have the pump, the hose, the tank, the ground ladders, and then the aerial ladder as well gives the Quint the 5 functions. The other trucks have 4 functions. This one is probably needing to go as well. I've spoke with the fire committee numerous times about this truck. It's starting to become a money hog. It is what it is. So the reason I'm bringing the equipment to your concern is because this truck might need to also be purchased at the same time. And the reason I'm saying that is because manufacturers are telling all fire departments right now, if you want a truck, you better buy one now, because it went from 365 days to 400 days to manufacture the truck. They're also saying at the beginning of the year, it may go to 450 days to manufacture a truck. Everybody's having the same problems we're having. They're having staffing issues, so they can't get the parts. They can't build the trucks. So it's putting that truck out later. So in the meantime, it doesn't absolve us, or it doesn't mean that we're not going to have structure fires or car wrecks. We still have to provide that service to our community. So I'm telling you right now to probably need to look at possibly purchasing both these trucks. I know it puts it out of our 5-year rotation, but this truck might be gone sooner than we anticipate. I wanted to put this truck as actually engine 2 was going to be my frontline reserve truck. I don't think it's become reliable enough to do so, so I was going to put this truck as our reliable reserve truck. I'm not so sure if this one will be the reliable reserve truck as well. It's also at Station 1. Next slide, please. So this is our newest fire engine that we have. We just purchased it last year. It has 8,000 miles on it. So far, so good. It's been a reliable truck. We like it. And it's currently housed at Station 3. Next slide, please. This is our new tanker as well. The production date was 2020. We did take possession of it in 2021 as well. It has a specific function. It carries 2,500 gallons. The truck weighs about 45,000 pounds. Just in water weight alone, it carries roughly 10 ton of water. There's a lot of bridges in our county, especially where this truck is housed. Out of River River, we got a 9-ton bridge, so the water alone exceeds the bridge capacity limit. So you can, it is what it is, but we're working through that. The tanker is a solid piece of equipment, and we're very thankful for it. We did recycle the tanker to the road department that we previously had, and the road department's using it to flush culverts. Next slide, please. So this is our newest brush truck. It's a 2018 model. This truck is designed to go places and fight wilderness fires. It's a pretty good truck. We don't have any issues with it. It's a 3500. Next slide, please. This is the truck that truck replaced this truck. This was a hand-me-down from the road department. It's a 2002 model F350. It doesn't look too bad. We've polished it as best as we could, but you can see the date of the truck. It's almost a 20-year-old truck as well. So this is out to Station 3. Next. So this is going to staff vehicles. This is our training fire marshal's apparatus. It's a 1999 model. It's got over 200,000 miles in it. This truck only stays within the county because we can't trust it to send it anywhere else. Every time we send it somewhere for training or purposes, it breaks down, and I wind up going and getting our men and taking them to it. So that's currently what our fire marshal and training officer has for an everyday vehicle. Next slide, please. This truck is the special operations truck, and this is F250. It's 10 years old. This was also a hand-me-down from the road department. I made a little note there. If you see, we use some webbing to tie up the emergency brake because it's what we got right now. We got to do with what we got. This truck is very important to us because we haul a lot of trailers. We have our trench rescue trailer, our swift water trailer, a storm trailer. We carry a lot of trailers because we don't have enough engines to carry all the equipment we need because we're all hazards. So this truck is very important. It's almost 100,000 miles. It's not an everyday truck, but it needs to be reliable, and half the time it is not reliable. You see what we do we just don't put the money into it because hopefully we're waiting for Alan to get one of his old trucks again so we can have a newer hand-me-down. Next slide, please. This is our battalion chief's truck that will take the replace of the last truck. That truck will actually move into the fire marshal's training officer's position. So, we recycle or we repurpose all of our vehicles. We're not asking for a new vehicle for every instance, so we pass one down to a different department that may not put as many miles on the vehicle. So this was our battalion chief's truck. This was a everyday vehicle that went out on all the calls, and we're going to make this the special operations truck. So that's what its purpose will become. It's an F-350. It's also capable of handling the tow loads. The F-250, we were doing something with the truck that it just wasn't designed to do. We were carrying a lot of loads for that F-250, and that's what probably hurt the truck as well. Next slide, please. And this is our current new one. This was a purchase made through CSEP. This is our current battalion chief's vehicle, and it's a good truck. We know, though, that CSEP's going away, so that's the last vehicle that you will ever see purchased with CSEP money. So the county will be responsible for replacing that truck next time. But I anticipate probably, we got about 10 years out of the other battalion trucks vehicles, so I anticipate the same thing. Next slide, please. This is our extrication tools on Rescue One, our Engine 1. They've been there so long that hardly anyone in our department knows when they were purchased. So we're guessing that it was purchased about 2007. And this is our frontline extrication tools. So good set of tools. It still functions, but we need to start budgeting next time for a new set of rescue tools. Next slide, please. This is the combination tool that we put on Engine 2. Excuse me, I keep hitting that microphone. So this is the extrication tool that we use on Engine 2 because if you notice, it's a combination tool. It's a cutter, spreader, both, because we just don't have the capacity to carry it on Engine 2 because it is a smaller truck. So this is what we put on that one. Next slide, please. This is Engine 3's new extrication tool. I say new, but it's a used tool, but it's new to us. We purchased this with funding that the fiscal court give us to put on Engine 3. That way it gives us each of those capabilities on each of our frontline apparatus. This piece of equipment, if you notice, it's just the cutters and the spreaders on the right there. We didn't get the rams, the guillotine, the other accessories that go with it. We just didn't have the money. Just those three items right there that you see were $22,000. So that's where we're at with the tools and our equipment. So what I'd like to press upon you is that Engine 2 needs to replace this year. So we're currently speccing it out. We get it ordered. That means that we don't have to budget for it till next year. But Engine 1 needs to follow that next year as well. That will put us on a 5-year cycle at that point. So the next time you would only see a fire chief come in here, hopefully, is 5 years down the line. So you don't have to budget for a truck every year, but we will probably need to budget for one every 4 to 5 years at that point, which puts us on a schedule, and that's what we need to be. I think that's what the fiscal court has asked for, and that's what we have given you, or at least attempted to give you. As far as equipment, does anybody have any questions? I'll go through the other 3 bullet points real quick. Our stations, I had been in discussions with Judge Pace and the fire committee. Oh, sorry, I throwed that boat in there for Travis. Yep. How can I forget the boat? Not saying we need another boat. I'm just, the boat's a 2020. We love the boat. We've already trained several days with the boat. We've hosted a training at the Kentucky River along with Madison County, Winchester, and Richmond fire departments. We all got down there, and we've trained with this boat quite extensively. So we're proud to have that boat. So, back to the fire stations. I've talked to, God rest his soul, the judge about building a new Station 2. We're very confined and very limited to what we can do at Station 2. Obviously, we have to put a truck that will fit in that size, and that's not what I'd like. We need a new station. Not only that, our current Station 1, since all of our men are running out of that station, it and Station 3, we need a lot of repairs to Station 1. We have budgeted for concrete work. Alan's coming down next week. Road department and fire department are going to work together and replace the front apron. We'll budget next year to replace the back apron. So, but the building itself has a lot of structural issues. It's been addressed in previous fire studies. I just got to put it on your radar again because we've not fixed any of those issues also. Sorry about that. The next thing is, you know, we're right on track on our budget. We were way over budget on line items when I took over because of salary, because we were limited in our staff. We had about 14 people when we were authorized 23, so there was a severe amount of overtime. Currently, even with all the disasters that we've had, the flooding and multiple trainings that we've had, we're currently about 4% over on our full-time staffing line item, but we are 22% under budget on our part-time line item. The reason for that is because we've depleted our part-time people. We've hired them as full-time people, so we're in the current process of trying to get our part-timers back up. That's why we're under budget there and in over budget. So it basically, if we'd had those part-time people, we would both be, or we would be under budget on both line items. The other thing is you know, I know we've talked a lot about pay today. We're going to be no different. The only thing that I would like to add to that is we have already made plans to do a budget increase for salaries, but we're doing it at budget time. I've already talked to the men, they're okay with it. We know the time to ask for a raise is during the budget, or that's the way we looked at it. We got together and we agreed, our men, we definitely need a budget raise, or pay increase because of several surrounding counties doing the exact same thing, just like, you know, the jailer said, you know, other counties are increasing their pay, they have, and we are somewhere around $4,000 or $5,000 under what other departments are paying. So I'd like for you all just to remember, come budget discussions, we need a budget for an increase in pay just to remain competitive. Not asking to be competitive with counties such as Scott County or Fayette County, because we know we can't compete with those guys. They're going to steal people no matter what. Ask the city fire department right now, they're dealing with it. Every time they hire someone right now, they lose them 2 weeks later because Lexington needs them and they can pay more. So not asking you to remain competitive with them, but I am asking that you remain competitive with counties that are like us, Montgomery County, Winchester Fire Department, Bourbon County. And currently right now we're about $4,000 or $5,000 behind them on pay. But we ask that you remember that during budget time. We're not asking for it right now. The men are okay waiting till budget time. Does anybody have any questions about it? Sorry I flew through it. Just due to the length of the court meeting, I tried to shorten it as best as possible. If anybody has any questions.
What's the status of the facility out at Trap that you were working with the road supervisor on?
Talked to Alan Curtis about it the other day, and he said that he was going to get with the grant writers. They haven't, he said in October, early November, that we would know something. We haven't heard anything about the grant as of yet. But that, glad you brought that up. Also, that building will help with some of our issues of housing some vehicles. So we do plan for that. But I think that, but the winter's coming, that building's not there now, and fire trucks can't sit outside. So we're working with the road department and other places to try to house some of these engines, because that has to be climate controlled. Any other questions? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
Thank you, Chief. Okay, I listed there, item 21, discussion of our fiscal court meeting in November, but I understand, I've been told that we have already acted on that at a previous meeting and set it for the 23rd, is that correct? At 9:30 a.m.?
I think that was correct.
I believe that's correct, yes.
I remember it.
And I think we did the same thing for Christmas, the week of Christmas.
I think that's right.
Our Thursday meeting fell on the day before Christmas Eve, and we've changed it to that Tuesday at 9:30
that's
a.m. as
right.
well. Judge Pace did that. I think we did it by order.
And we did those at 9:30 a.m.?
That's my recollection.
And these obviously would be treated as special call meetings because
The 23rd, is that right?
the 23rd of November?
23rd of November, and the December date was the 21st.
I think that's correct.
Okay.
Double check me on that. That's just my memory.
Okay. With that being said, we do have a closed session item, and I'll entertain a motion to move to closed session
So moved.
by Magistrate Davis. Did I hear?
Second.
Second by Magistrate Constantopoulos. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We will move into closed session, and then we will come back into open session before we have